Christian Darrisaw somehow is back on a practice field. Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day every single day. I appreciate you all so very much. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. We've got a lot to go over today. It was kind of a bit of a news day as mandatory minicamp kicks off for the Vikings, which means a couple of things. It means that, the rubber meets the road a little bit for certain holdout situations. It's kind of why you got a news dump around the league of like TJ Watt and similar situations. But it also means that there's a little more media access and some pressers and stuff. So we've got a ton to go over, plus an Everyman series, jam-packed show for you today. But the big one is Christian Darrisaw took the field and at least participated in a limited capacity. It has been less than 8 months since his devastating knee injury in that game against the Rams last year. That is an insane timeline for him to be where he is at right now. TJ Hockenson did not take the field for a game for about 10 months after his injury. Now, I don't know when he was at the point where Darrisaw is, where Darrisaw has a big ol' honking knee brace and can go do endos and be a limited participant in practice. Because of the way that reporting works around injuries when you're on I think it was IR for TJ Hockenson or PUP or whichever one. Basically, we aren't getting very complete information of where he was at up until the day that they activated him off of that list. They brought him in the Friday before the Jets game week 5. That still would have been about 9 months from his injury the year before. So Darrisaw seems to be significantly ahead of where TJ Hockenson was, and they suffered the same injury, an ACL and MCL tear. Same deal where you have to wait for a while for the swelling of the MCL to go down before you can safely do the surgery. So that, puts off the recovery process, and then the timeline starts from there. Same everything. Darrisaw suffered his in October. Hockenson suffered his later in the year. So by the same logic, that's why I spent all offseason saying, week 1 is kind of going to be the target for Darrisaw. And the Vikings have said the same thing. That's about a normal timeline. So him getting back in if this were a weekly practice, if you show up, do individual drills, and then stand off to the side for team drills, it's limited participation. Being a limited participant in 7 months is insane. And I don't want to go too crazy though. Just doing some endos with a giant knee brace, that's not 100%. We've still got a ways to go, but it certainly does imply that we're no longer hoping for week 1. We're thinking maybe this guy can actually get in for most of camp. I doubt you would see Darrisaw in the preseason regardless, so there's no pressure here. But seeing him out on the field right now can only be good news. Really exciting stuff. Other exciting stuff. So we got to talk a little bit about some contract stuff and the tight end stuff. So Josh Oliver signs a new contract. It is reported as a 3-year, $23.25 million contract with $4 more on top of that can be earned. Including $11.9 million in new guarantees. Josh Oliver did have a couple of void years on his contract, so those void years now just become real years, and the bonus sort of spreads into that, which is pretty nice, right? You don't get the dead cap at the end of it necessarily, unless there's new void years tacked onto the back of this one. We'll see what that's like when this contract structure comes out. But if you just take, 3 for 23.5, so that's $7 million and change average annual value. That's a lower average annual value than, or by percentage of cap, once you adjust for salary cap, than it was last time. I think you can pretty responsibly describe this Josh Oliver contract as we are exactly happy with this deal. Let's get a little bit more of it and actually eking a little more value than that out of that. It makes a lot of sense. He's a good rotational player. You're not breaking the bank to overpay a guy that's still tight end too, still a blocking tight end. You're not going super crazy on it, but you're still rewarding him for the level that he has played at. He's a very good blocking tight end and has had a couple of fun little moments and like rollouts and stuff too. Cute little goal line touchdowns, that kind of thing. So I think we're all pretty happy with Josh Oliver in the role that he is in Minnesota. And this implies very much that everybody's happy with status quo there. And we're just going to like run that thing back. But also in contract news, another big reason that this matters, the tight end room, Gavin Bartholomew has not been a participant in any OTA stuff with some kind of undisclosed injury. The Vikings actually brought in Giovanni Ricci, which is an incredibly Italian name. He's like a 5th or 6th year player who hasn't made a team in a couple of years. This is very much like a camp body seeming type that would like kind of screwed around on the Panthers for a hot second, and that was about it. And released Matt Harmon, who was a rookie minicamp ad, one of the like tryout guys that got added to the roster. Now he's off the roster. And Giovanni Ricci is now in the tight end room. Gavin Bartholomew being hurt, they probably want another warm body in there, but I don't know what the prognosis is for Bartholomew or if it's even going to matter, if this whole thing is even going to last till cut down day or significantly into camp at all. One last contract note, and then we'll go into some depth chart stuff. Josh Metellus, we're still kind of waiting on contract stuff for him. Brian Flores didn't seem very concerned at all. Josh Metellus was even interviewed, and he kind of said, hey, I'm not worrying about that. I think the way he put it was everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. So it's hard to take anything negative out of that. But you know what? Some of you will try, and I guess good luck. The situation is he's been also a limited participant in minicamp. I think he's kind of doing the bare minimum to like not get fined at mandatory minicamp while still kind of reducing his injury risk as much as possible. That feels like the balance, the middle ground, the like sort of thread the needle to make everybody happy while a contract extension gets negotiated. But it seems he's very much saying all the right things, saying, it's not really me, my agent, and the Vikings people are figuring that out upstairs. I'm here to practice, which is the right thing to say. It's the right attitude to have, but obviously a situation to monitor moving forward. That's not the only thing we are learning about the safety room and the defensive depth chart in general. We'll have that and then an Everyman Series entry next on Locked On Vikings. This episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. It's championship season, Stanley Cup, NBA Finals, and every single game is a banger, at least with the hockey. They're all bangers. If you want to get in on this kind of thing, or maybe, hey, the Thunder are down at halftime. You think a comeback's going to happen? Get in at FanDuel. You can make live bets in the middle of the game. If you miss tip-off, you can still get probably close to the same lines just as a live bet. You can even build all your parlays. Just make them a same-game parlay now. And right now, you can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So go sign up at FanDuel. Put $5 on something that you feel really confident about, even if it's not that good of odds on that something, because you will get $200 in bonus bets if that $5 bet wins. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Moving along here with the Locked On Vikings podcast. Sorry, my battery got low there. So a couple of things came out of an interview or a press conference with Brian Flores that I found kind of interesting. This was the first time Flores got to talk to the media for a while. And so you got to ask him about like Isaiah Rodgers. And he's like, oh yeah, I've been in on Rodgers since he was at UMass, back in college, and I've been watching him forever. And all these fun little things. Flores is a coach speaker for sure. He was when he was a head coach. So you kind of have to like dig underneath that. But I do think he said something that was pretty committal about Theo Jackson. So we'll start there with, one of the questions was like, so how do you feel about Theo Jackson stepping into his new role? And the context of that conversation, he basically said, oh yeah, we were really sad to see Cam Bynum leave. we always love that guy, but we feel really good about Theo Jackson stepping up and into that role. And it implies, Theo Jackson's going to just play the Cam Bynum role. I think that makes sense. Like, that feels like the best guess for what could happen in that safety room, where Theo Jackson just becomes the Cam Bynum and you just rotate it a little differently. I think Joshua Metellus, especially once you pay him more, this will kind of justify it, will play the Cam Bynum role when there are only two safeties on the field. And so you'll have a Harrison Smith and a Joshua Metellus, and Metellus is going to back off and be your like half safety or whatever, or I don't know, rotate into cloud coverage or whatever weird crap Flores wants him to do. But when you have three safeties out there, Theo Jackson is the one going to be backing off. That's what I think happens here, and that seems to be corroborated. But the one that I think is going to get people talking a little more, and I wish it could have been my headline, but had to do the Darrisaw thing, is he, in no uncertain terms, referred to Dallas Turner as a starter among Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel. Again, this could be coach speak. It could just be him kind of saying crap, right? Like there's nothing is binding about this. But that felt like a little more committal than anyone asked him to be. Somebody asked him, how do you feel about Dallas Turner? He could have just said something super generic. He said a lot of generic stuff. He didn't have to add this detail. He talked about, he came in like he's doing everything right. He's got the right attitude. He's, done everything we ask of him. Very positive. And you could speak in these vagaries as forever and nobody would really bat an eye at it because that's just what we do in these press conferences now. You ask about a player, you get one of six, like Bart has 6 cool sayings, and you get one of Bart's 6 cool sayings and you put it in your thing and you move on. But he explained, he kind of went to bat for the rookie year thing again. He said that rookie year is tough. You go through the combine, you go through the NFL draft, you're kind of right in it. You don't really have an off season to sort of come down from the college season and then into the NFL season, really adjust. It's all faster. And then you got these 2 Pro Bowlers that are taking all the snaps from you. It was a tough situation and he did really well with it, which is something that, a point that makes sense and is pretty hard to argue against, I think. But also one that Flores has said before plenty. So he's talks about that and could have left it there, but then he says, I look at that room and I'm really excited about Dallas. I see that room as 3 starters, as those 3 guys, referring to Van Ginkel, Grenard, and Dallas Turner. And I think that is unnecessarily committal. Like he didn't have to go there, and that's what makes me feel like he means it. And that it's not just, trying to go to bat for a draft pick that isn't working out and trying to save face, right? And I think, these guys have, especially Flores, he's had draft picks fail on him, right, in Miami. That those chickens come home to roost eventually. So I don't think that he has a lot of reason to be dishonest there. And if he was being dishonest, I don't think he would have gone that hard on it. And Dallas Turner does look noticeably larger, a little thicker, for whatever that's worth to you. But I guess I should use this moment to reiterate the Brian Flores thing, which is that the whole depth chart plays. Everyone plays. If you look at the snap counts from last year, barring injury or somebody like Dallas Turner who wasn't in for the whole first half of the season because he's a rookie, guys like Jerry Tillery or Jihad Ward are playing almost 500 snaps. I mean, you're getting 200 snaps out of Jalen Redmond. And that one wasn't necessarily for injury at all, unless you count Taki Taimani's injury. But if you add those 2 guys together, that's a roll. So even if you fall down the depth chart, you're still going to play a lot. So he views it as having a couple of starters, right? 459 for Patrick Jones as well. So all of these guys are going to get involved. And what we call a starter or whatever nominally is not going to matter. But I guess that'll be the barometer is, will Dallas Turner have that kind of role, or will they sort of put it all aside when it's a game they feel is important? This is what I think the kicker was. And Dallas Turner fell away this way. Patrick Jones was hurt, but they also didn't put Jihad Ward in. They had Grenard and Van Ginkel almost exclusively out there in the Lions games and the Rams games. And those games were both, I think there was a psychological, They felt important, right? That Lions game felt like the NFC Championship going in. I mean, like, you remember the vibe, right? Like, it felt like it was this huge, it was just the most grandeur ever for a regular season game. It felt like a playoff game at least, if not a deep playoff game, and then an actual playoff game. And in those games, the Vikings did not get any pressure at all, and they didn't rotate at all. It kind of felt like that you didn't quite trust your rotational guys enough to do it when you feel like the game is really, 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 really important for your season, like a playoff game would be. So that's, I think, where we find out how much Brian Flores really means it with Dallas Turner. Not necessarily the total, but games against Detroit, big one, the Philadelphia game at home. Big turning points in the season, and especially those last two games where they wrap up two in a row in the division that are going to be absolutely lights out important. Where is Dallas Turner on those, and how much is he getting in? That'll be a big one. But as it always is, at least in my opinion, your best bet to figure out if Dallas Turner is doing well is to watch him. And I'll use this moment to plug, I did a ton of content on Dallas Turner. Everything but the wide left articles are free to watch, but I have a couple of wide left articles about Dallas Turner that I wrote last year. And I think I have 5 or 6 Patreon videos documenting his growth, going over him in his debut, his first game, where the point was, hey, cool sack, but you kind of didn't do anything else. And then going over kind of where the disappearing act, why the disappearing act might have happened, what he needed to work on. And then 3 in a row when he had that stretch of games, Atlanta, Chicago, Seattle, those 3 games where he had either a big sack or the interception against Seattle, and really showed out, and you could really see him. And Flores said, you can see his growth over the back half of the season. Watch those videos and you can see what he is talking about. So I've got a bunch of reasons to think that Brian Flores is really throwing his weight behind his player and putting a little bit of faith in him. And now we just have to see if that gets paid off. Speaking of faith, how about a leap of one next on Locked On Vikings? Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by Skylight Frames. Hey, Father's Day is coming up, and you may have procrastinated. The Skylight Calendar is here for you. It helps bring clarity to the chaos and help families stay organized to either avoid that particular problem or get a gift to solve that problem. The Skylight Calendar is for you. If you're trying to get a family organized and oops, I didn't know that was today, oh my God, I forgot about that thing, is something you hear all the time, Skylight is for you. Here's what it is. It's like a digital frame, a big, sleek digital display that syncs with your existing calendars to show you what you have coming up, what you have today, and make sure it is in a very prominent place and everybody can see and everybody's organized and on the same page. So plans are going to get buried under each other. A big 15-inch HD screen to help tell you what is going on. Right now, Skylight is offering our listeners $30 off of their 15-inch calendars by going to skylightcal.com/NFL. Go to skylightcal.com/NFL for $30 off of your 15-inch calendar. That is skylightcal.com/NFL. One evening in late October a couple of years ago, in a park in East Central Seattle called Garfield Playfield, a hero of heroes in the Seattle area goes to play a little ball with his old youth football team called the Central District Panthers. That player is Mishel Powell. He goes by Meech Powell. He is the hero of the moment. He could go do anything right now this week. It's one of those moments where he's like where he's never going to have to buy a drink for himself again. But he goes back to where he grew up, where he started playing, to celebrate there and help work with the youngins. Meesh Powell grew up playing youth football his parents were both Ivy Leaguers. So this is one of those like book smart families where education is everything. And the idea of going and playing college football is very secondary to going to college. And Meech Powell is a 3-star recruit with lots and lots and lots of interest. 3-star recruit with 2 Ivy League parents. It feels like one of those things you would only get if you spent like 30 minutes in the pedigree. You remember this, the Madden thing, when you would like make a player and you could like decide what your parents did to get the perfect genetics, and it was like a little bit weird. But you could like sit there and like re-roll it a bunch of times. Yeah, man, like great football genetics and Ivy League parents, that seems like the one. And so he gets a bunch of Ivy League offers. He's good enough for the Ivy League, but as a 3-star recruit, a little bit tougher for like the D1 football programs to get a scholarship. So he's faced with a decision. Do I play ball at Harvard and get a scholarship there? Or do I try to walk on? He has offers to do that somewhere like Washington. This is also kind of funny. I mean, he grows up in the Seattle area, right? But he is an Oregon fan, which I find very funny. I mean, we all knew that kid, right? Like you grew up in like Minnesota and everybody in their family is Vikings fans, but they're like, oh, I'm going to be a Packers fan. I wonder if it was that, or I couldn't find why he was an Oregon fan and why he decided that. But Washington is willing to give him an offer as a walk-on. He has to take that risk. I have to imagine his parents are tearing their faces off during this decision, going, oh my God, take the scholarship to Harvard, or you could make us like pay to send you to UW. Like, oh my God, take the Harvard. But that's not what he's going to do. He takes a leap of faith. He bets on himself. And it doesn't take a lot of convincing for his parents to get on board. So you really believe in yourself, your ability to make this team, to earn this scholarship. Just got to get a feel of, okay, let's do it. We're with you. His parents will not miss a Meesh Powell game. There's one exception. We'll get to it. And are all in his corner, but it's slow going to start. His first camp, which is ever so crucial when you're a walk-on, he at least earns a red shirt. So you're there, you're in the program, you're not playing yet, but you're going to develop a little bit, and we'll see what you can do next year. Problem is, next year is the unprecedented one. That's 2020 and COVID. So he doesn't get any action in COVID either, for various reasons, right? That'll stunt your growth and will stunt, a whole bunch of college football seasons and stuff. No, it's not until 2021 he gets in a little bit of spot duty. His first game action comes in week 1, but it's week 4 that year. An OT thriller, if you're a big Pac-12 fan, you might remember this. An OT thriller with a forced fumble at the end for Washington to seal it. He actually forced a fumble earlier in that same game, Meech Powell did, and earned his rightful place in the defense. And that rightful place in the defense after all that development turned out to be a little Swiss Army knife, a little Josh Metellus-y. He would be a nickel sometimes, he'd be a safety sometimes, he'd be outside at corner sometimes. A lot of weird places to be. That game would be the first of 38 starts he would have for the Washington Huskies over 3 years. And like I said, the parents will go to every game. But if you are a Washington fan, there is probably one that you really remember Meech Powell for, and it's the one his mom will miss. She's got a wedding that weekend, so she can't come to the game, and she's sick about it because this is a game where it's 7-6. It's against Arizona State in Washington. Sun Devils are coming in and beating Washington 7-6, and they're driving. It's one of these like grindy defensive games. It's a Mike Penix disaster class. This is the 2023 Huskies, by the way. So this is the team that'll go to the Natty, by the way. Meech Powell played in that against J.J. McCarthy. But it's one of these like ugly slop fest, think, worst of the worst Vikings Bears Soldier Field game. And it looks like Arizona State's going to score again and kind of put this thing out of range. And you're just hoping you can make them kick and get one more shot to go down the field. They run an ugly slant, slow and plodding, and the ball is late. Meech Powell jumps it from outside corner, and it's a slant. There is nobody else there. So he catches that thing, and he's gone. And he waltzes to the house, 87 yards. The moment is electric. This is a frustrated, like cathartic crowd, or like a crowd in need of catharsis. And his dad is there. Very often, he'll see his kid make a play or something like that, but there's a lot going on and it's loud and like it's kind of hard to figure out like what the vibe of the moment is. And there is no mistake this time, especially like you make like a ho-hum tackle and everybody's not that it's like, okay, cool, good job. But this one is this different vibe because the game will end on it. It's 15-7 is the final score of the game. They'll score one more field goal, kind of put it out of reach, and then that's it. So this is like the game-winning play after the offense is super frustrating and the defense is played out of its mind to keep them in this game, and they just go finish it themselves, and it's his kid specifically who does it personally. It's a feeling unlike anything I could ever imagine. And he's the hero. He spent some time afterwards going back to Garfield Park Field in East Central Seattle to go reconnect with where it all started. Like I said, they'll go to the national championship that year. They won't win, but he decides to go for one more year of college and grad transfer to the University of Miami. He'll declare for the transfer portal like a few days after the national championship, so this was always the plan. Play one more year in Miami, and then off to the NFL draft in 2025. Walk-ons in college are a lot like undrafted rookies in the NFL. It's not unheard of to see them find a way on the team, but they're long shots. Meesh Powell as a walk-on that earned a start and now essentially has to be the NFL version of a walk-on. He's got the experience of that sort of underdog mentality. But it took him a couple years. And in the NFL, you don't always get a couple years. Maybe, he gets a practice squad slot if he doesn't make the team, and he gets to come back and try again, and he can sort of Tristan Jackson his way onto the roster eventually. Maybe there's a UFL angle that is happening more and more and more. But, I always talk about where the credits roll on the movie. The credits have already rolled here on this one. I mean, for Powell, the idea of, I wanted to bet on myself. I got my degree. I even went and did grad school. And I've kind of gotten the education part out of the way. And now this is just great because this football thing actually took me a lot further than I thought. It kind of feels a little house money. You know what I mean? And there's a dignity in that, even if your NFL career never takes off because you are an undrafted rookie. So I think about the stakes and what everybody has that they're hoping for, what everybody has to fight for. Everybody has a really good reason to be doing this. And for some people, the dream that they had was realized and has now been replaced by a newer, bigger dream. And that's where Meech Powell is. But whatever it is that happens, I'm going to guess that he's betting on himself again. And because the first one paid off so well, it's pretty hard to blame him. I'll talk to y'all tomorrow. And as always, Skull.